Welcome to the Inside Travel Talk podcast and radio show. On today's show, we're going to talk about vacationing in Panama and tall ship sailing on the Star Clipper. Let's start the show.
The Inside Travel Talk podcast and radio show, presented by BluePlanetVacations.com, contains travel deals, promotions, and offers that may be time sensitive. All offers and information were accurate when the show aired. Travel deals and offers change constantly and are capacity controlled and subject to change without notice.
Explore your world. It's the Inside Travel Talk podcast and radio show, presented by BluePlanetVacations.com. Call or text the show now, 801-649-3700, 801-649-3700, and check out the podcast at InsideTravelTalk.com. And now, here are your hosts, Patrick Wiscombe and Mark Faldmo.
Welcome to the Inside Travel Talk podcast and radio show. My name is Mark Faldmo. Thank you for taking the time to stop by and listen to the show this week. The entire purpose of this show is to help you plan and book your next vacation. Our tagline is Explore Your World, and we hope to give you some ideas on where your next vacation could be. The Inside Travel Talk podcast and radio show is sponsored by BluePlanetVacations.com. This week, the show is shortened from our normal length due to the holidays. If you're listening on the radio, you'll hear a replay of the first 30 minutes in the second half of the hour. Also, Patrick is unable to be here this week, but we're able to talk earlier this week and have a discussion on why we travel and some unique travel destinations. Let's listen to that segment.
I know that we wanted to talk about how travel opens minds. This has been my experience. When you're home, you kind of have your own world of things. You know, you drive to work, you podcast, you kind of make the world kind of small. That when you go out and travel, you see just how amazing humans are and how travel opens minds. And I want to have you talk about some of your travel experiences and how that's taken place for you.
As long as I can remember, I've been traveling. I'm third generation, and
in the business.
Okay. So I've grown up. My grandparents started it, my parents, and I've just always traveled. I've kind of taken some of those experiences for granted, but just as a child, being able to experience new customs, new cultures, it really is something that I'm a proponent of. Mm-hmm. Trying to help people. Like the tagline of our podcast is "Explore Your World."
Yeah,
help people to get out there and experience new cultures, which I think is very important to do.
I don't think you realize this, that I'm going to hit you cold right now, that when you start talking about cruising in Eastern Europe, Serbia, I don't think you realize just how your face lights up. You really do get excited about that stuff.
It is very unique and important experiences in my life.
You've been talking about Eastern Europe and Serbia. I guess the former Yugoslavia, man, that dates us just a little bit, but Serbia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, that was something special. So instead of going to Paris, going to London, that you actually went to Eastern Europe. That was pretty interesting for you.
So, and that kind of plays into another kind of story that's in travel now, is over tourism. There are a lot of places, like Venice, for instance, that has banned cruise ships of certain sizes. Mm-hmm. Some places just are really experiencing over tourism. So how do we combat that?
Now, when you say over tourism, you're literally talking about too many people going to the same place.
Correct. Too many people going to the same place. Mm-hmm. As Americans, we think of Rome, Venice, Paris, London. Though if we think of going to Europe, that's probably where we go. But there are other places, for instance, Novi Sad in Serbia, one of the most fascinating European cities I've ever visited.
What was it?
It was a medieval city that had, all of the same things that you find in other European cities. There was nobody there. It was just a unique experience that had the history. Now it has different history. The Eastern European history is different, but just fascinating. Another one is Montenegro, which is in that same area. Taking a cruise up, and it's called Europe's Southern Fjord, and you cruise up this fjord. It's actually a sunken river bed, and you end in this little town at the end.
What boat were you on?
That was on Norwegian that I was on
okay.
NCL. But a lot of cruise lines go there. Think of some of these other unique, out-of-the-box places so that, you don't, I guess, overcrowd other places. And some of those places, when there's lots of people there, like Venice, is
It'd be tough.
almost not fun to visit. I tell people, if you're going to go to visit to Venice, stay overnight. In the day, it's crowded, and at night, it is a wonderful place. I think we talked about that.
Yeah, that was
last week or the week before.
A couple weeks ago.
Yeah, there are lots of unique places that you don't think of.
The first episodes when we were on the air or on the podcast that you were talking about the Aranui cruise ship. Aranui's the name of the cruise line, I think.
Yes.
And how it was half freighter or a third freighter, and then I forgot what the combination was, but basically it was a cruise ship and a freighter because you're out in the middle of nowhere.
So, again, this is another fabulous experience in exploring another culture. So this leaves from Papeete in French Polynesia, Tahiti, and it's literally half cruise ship and half container ship. Fantastic, because you go to these islands, these small islands in the Marquesas Islands. You deliver freight. Well, you don't do it. The boat's delivering freight. You go out and see the island, experience the culture. All the locals cook you we would call it a luau here, so you go out and have the roasted pig from the ground and just local traditional lunch. They put on traditional dances. Just amazing to immerse yourself in that culture that very few people get to go to. One of the islands that I went to reminded me a lot of the island of Kauai in Hawaii. Green, tropical, but there were only 300 people that lived on that island.
Oh.
And so that's the kind of difference and experience you get. Untouched South Pacific Islands. Was
it a little unsettling? Just a little bit? Just to be that remote?
It was a little bit, but also exciting at the same time, because you are out there on these remote islands. I think the largest one we visited had a population of maybe 1,500, 2,000 people.
That's not a lot of people.
You just go, all the locals, there really aren't so-called shore excursions. Mm-hmm. All the locals show up in their king cab pickup trucks, and you stick 4 of you in, and they drive you around the island. It's just a train of pickup trucks. That's the bus. So, again, very interesting.
I can see some old Datsuns, Nissans, King Cab.
So, and that Polynesian culture is one that's near and dear to me and my family. I love going to the Pacific Islands and experiencing that.
That is one thing that I've consistently heard from you and your dad. I wish listeners could see the softness in your eyes. You really do love that Polynesian people.
Now, let's talk about another unique destination. This week I received a call from a client that wants to go to Panama, and he was wondering where to stay and what there was to do in Panama. Panama is a unique destination. We've talked a lot about on this show about Costa Rica. They're two fairly similar destinations, but Panama has some uniqueness, especially because of the Panama Canal. A lot of people think of visiting Panama by doing a Panama Canal cruise, but if you go there just as a vacation, it is a wonderful destination spot. And here are some of the things that you can do in Panama. One of my favorite things to do is visit the Canal Museum. This is a museum that talks about the building of the Panama Canal. It also has a viewing station where you can go watch the ships go through the locks. It's fascinating how they move the ships through the locks. And this definitely should be on your list of things to do when visiting Panama. Another thing is Monkey Island. This is out in Lake Gatun, which is the lake in between the locks. You can go out on boat and visit islands that are just filled with monkeys. Pretty interesting thing to do. One of my favorite things is Old Panama City. There's the new city that has tall skyscrapers, and you go into the old city, which is, kind of perched a little bit up on a hill. You can look across the bay to the new city. Just has a really colonial atmosphere, really good restaurants. Old Panama City is something definitely worth visiting. Probably one of the most unique things you can do in Panama is visit indigenous villages. You go by canoe to these villages, and they teach you all about the village life. The one thing in Panama is there still are several native indigenous tribes, and to visit them, experience their culture, learn their way of life is pretty fascinating. And then another unique thing is the Gamboa aerial tram. We've talked about a similar experience in Costa Rica, and this is a tram that goes up through the rainforest. You see the wildlife, the different levels of the canopy, and learn about the rainforest, how it works, and how to preserve that. Now we can transition to where to stay in Panama. There really are kind of two areas to stay. One is the city, which is in the city with the skyscrapers. The other is the beach area, and this is where you'll find a lot of the all-inclusive hotels in Panama. And actually, my favorite places to stay are not in these two places. There's kind of a transition area as you're going from the city to the beach, and it's in an area called Bonita. My favorite place to stay there is the Dreams Playa Bonita, and also on that beach is the Westin Playa Bonita. I did a quick look for a 5-night package from Salt Lake City. This is departing fairly close in February 12th, staying at the Dreams Playa Bonita, which is a 5-star. The cost of airfare, transfers, hotel, and the all-inclusive is $19.39 per person. And then the other hotel on that list was the Westin Playa Bonita, which is a 4-star. It's not all-inclusive, but you can upgrade to a meal package, and that one starts at $16.59 per person. One other hotel that I'd like to point out is the Gamboa Rainforest Reserve. This is a hotel that is out on Gamboa Lake. This actually used to be the Officers Club when the U.S. military controlled the canal zone. And so they've converted this to a 4-star resort like the Westin. It's not all-inclusive, but you can upgrade to a meal package, and that starts at $16.59 per person. Again, that was February 12th for 5 nights. Panama is just a wonderful, kind of not thought of destination to visit. There's a lot of history there. A place I would highly recommend to add to your bucket list or future vacation plans. Well, that'll do it for the first segment of the show. We'll be back in just a minute to talk about star clippers and tall ships sailing around the world.
Taking you to destinations around the world. The Inside Travel Talk podcast and radio show is presented by BluePlanetVacations.com. America's best travel advisors. Call or text the show now. 801-649-3700. 801-649-3700. Thanks for listening. We'll be right back.
This segment of Inside Travel Talk is sponsored by Star Clippers. For over 30 years, Star Clippers has offered unique, authentic tall ship sailing experiences featuring creative itineraries throughout the Mediterranean, Caribbean, and Central America. To book your unique Star Clipper sailing adventure, contact Blue Planet Vacations at 888-718-7717 or blueplanetvacations.com.
Now, back to the Inside Travel Talk podcast and radio show, presented by BluePlanetVacations.com. America's best travel advisors. Call or text the show right now. 801-649-3700. 801-649-3700. And check out the podcast at InsideTravelTalk.com. Here's Patrick Wiscombe and Mark Faldmo.
Welcome back to segment 2 of the Inside Travel Talk podcast and radio show. My name is Mark Faldmo. We're glad you're with us. Now, a few weeks ago, Patrick had the opportunity to interview Beth Lindsley Elwood from Star Clippers. Star Clippers is a passenger sailing ship, one of the most unique experiences that I've had in cruising. Let's listen to the interview with Patrick and Beth.
Let me introduce to our listeners Beth Lindsley Elwood with Star Clippers. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
How are you?
I've been really excited to talk to you.
I love that.
Mark has brought this up to me a few times, that when he sailed on Star Clippers, he could not say enough good things about his experience.
Nothing gladdened my heart more, Patrick, and I don't know if I shared this with you, but nothing gladdened my heart more than when Mark sailed with us And I found out that through my boss, Terry, that he was loving it so much and that he was posting while he was on board. He was posting on social media, etc. I was just like, yes.
How did you get started with Star Clippers?
I signed with the company, had never stepped on board the ship. They put me on board the ship 8 weeks later. And about the second or third day on board, I stopped myself and I was thinking, I've got to figure out why I love this so much. And I was thunderstruck when I realized that I was relaxed. And I have never relaxed, even on personal vacations or whatever. So when people say, oh, yeah, I'm relaxing, have a good time, they don't know it until they really get on board, understand what no lines, no crowds, very few decisions, all those stress points of a typical vacation literally just peel away. It's astounding.
You met Nikki, my wife, right?
I did.
You did. Okay. I thought you did. We were literally just talking about this. It's our 30 wedding anniversary.
Come on, Patrick. You should know that.
Hold on. 32nd wedding anniversary.
Okay.
I said, love, we have to go do this. And I showed her the website. She goes, oh, that is different. And I said, yeah, that's why we're going to go do it. I am going to book it through Mark.
Okay.
When would you book and when would you sail?
Well, putting it in perspective, we are open for sale through October of 2025, which includes the entire Mediterranean season. And if you don't jump on it now, you're not going to get the ship, the sail date, and the cabin category and the availability that you want. Because as soon as our new brochure comes out, give us another week or two, maybe 3 max, stuff will start flying off the shelf. But Royal will always sell first, and her deluxe accommodations will always sell first. So there's stuff that's already moved on some of the best sale dates. Right?
Is the Royal the ship?
The Royal Clipper is the flagship of the fleet. The fleet.
Okay.
But back to your original question, I always say travel when you want to travel. I say go when you want to go and are able to go, because there's different parts of the season, and don't try to outguess the weather. So I really do mean that. The seasonality, though, is such that more people are starting to book shoulder season, tending to A, for the crowds, and or B, perhaps not as hot. When we launch the new brochure in another 1 to 3 weeks, wherever that is, we're also going to open for sale through March of 26.
Oh, wow.
So not only do we have December 24 through March of 25 open, we're going to be opening December 25 through March of 26. And as Beyonce would say, if you see it and you like it, put the ring on it.
Okay.
Yep, that's the response that I wanted. But people get it when I say that. And I really, really mean that, because 2 ships only have 83 staterooms and 1 ship has 114. And we have a lot of repeat guests that know that.
What is your favorite thing about Star Clippers? Like the first thing that comes to mind?
Family. I step on board, they know me. They are my family. I feel like I'm home. There's nothing odd or anything that I feel. It's like, I'm here. I'm home. This is where I want to be. My husband felt that way. He sailed the first time with me in October of 22, and that was the Amalfi Coast in Sicily. Yeah.
So it really connects with people.
I went on board knowing very, very, very little. I knew when to show up, but I just knew I have cruised before. I know how to get myself to the port. I know how to open a house account. I know cruising. What I didn't know was experience of sailing and just feeling. And again, that's why I had to stop myself second or third day in, because people are easy to get to know and to talk to. There are no lines, crowds. The stress points are gone. It is the coolest feeling to be out on deck, whether you're there with others and you're in your own little world, or you're out early in the morning, for example, where you're essentially alone and the sails are flapping, whether it's 1 sail, 3 sails, 4 sails, whatever. And the serenity that surrounds you between the sky and the sea and just being there is phenomenal. And I don't know how else to say it, Patrick, except that I did not know I needed sails, SAILS. Everybody needs sails.
Wow.
It's very, very freeing. And that's, again, it's very part and parcel to the casual, relaxed atmosphere we have on board, which is exactly what people appreciate. We're not out there hawking anything. If you want a cocktail, if you want a mocktail, just go to the tropical bar. There's nobody on deck that's going to come around. But we do announcements maybe midday from the captain, or if something really exciting is going on, the cruise director will get on. We're essentially announcement free. Unbeknownst to me, dinner I knew was from 7:30 to 10, and I was by myself, and it was the very first night on board. And I thought, I'm just not going to be one of those people that shows up exactly at 7:30. I'll just come down a little before 8 o'clock. The entire dining room was already filled. It was astounding to me. And what I learned was the dining rooms hold the entire complement of the ship. People come in after having an amazing day, whether it's first day on board or whether it's into the sailing, where you've been at the beach or you've been on a shore excursion or you've been out doing your own thing in port. There's no one rushing you. It's a great meal. We have Michelin trained chefs, and people relax and they regale their day. And what I found out on that sailing, 50% of our guests were repeat. So Med is our most popular, and that's why all 3 ships are there for a very, very long season. It's certainly the most popular for us. And then we move the ships according to the weather.
When you say Med, you mean Mediterranean?
Mediterranean.
Okay.
People are lovely. It's like-minded, people that are curious, people that want to see the world. It's people that don't want the crowds. They don't even know we're out there. So that's why we work extra hard in terms of introducing the brand, so they know and understand that there's a different journey out there than what you see in all the ads, which is generally big ship. But so many cruisers move from, when their first cruise experience was generally on a broad market brand, through the years into a smaller ship experience, whether it's all inclusive, 6-star, 6-star plus, or whether it's a premium brand like ourselves. But they come to learn and understand, you know what? I don't need all the bells and whistles. I don't need to be entertained 24/7. I want to do and have and whatever. So we're not inclusive on purpose. And that means if you want a shore excursion, purchase it on board. If you want a spa treatment or massage, you sign up for it on board. We keep pricing for beverages. So we don't even offer beverage packages. Not everybody drinks. Not everybody wants $75 a day to have to pay for all these things. I mean, you don't drink 24/7. Most people don't. I spend quite a bit of time on introducing the smooth sailing concept, because insider tips suggest refer to us as sailing or authentic sailing or unique sailing adventures, something with sailing, not a typical cruise. If you and I say cruise, it goes completely the other direction. They're going to have a perception of what we should look like, what we should offer, what my cabin looks like. It just is in the wrong direction. So when you say sailing, what happens is then you get, this is all they can think of, is that catamaran ride that they took in the Caribbean, or that sailboat or boating experience that they had in Catalina Island or San Francisco Bay. So I do spend time both on the consumer and the advisor side speaking to the largesse of the ships, how they're built, how they actually move through the water, and just simply the fact that we're small enough that we don't have to, we can hug coastlines, we can just drop anchor, we don't have to be in a big port. We don't have a casino on board, so we don't have to be in international waters. So I spend quite a bit of time comforting them and kind of just overcoming some of that fear of, wow. But when you introduce a ship that's either a football field long, end zone to end zone, or a football field and a half long, all of a sudden the perception starts to change. And when you describe the movement, because it's built like a sailboat, it's not a cruise ship with a shallow hull that sits on top of the water. A sailboat has a draft. So we're 18.5 feet down in the water, held by the keel. So the movement is more like sitting in a rocking chair, where you sit down and then we're cutting through and moving forward through the water, which means that, again, it's the soothing forward and backward type of movement. It's not the side by side that they think about.
I didn't even think about that.
It comes up right away.
So through the water rather than bobbing on top of the water.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you, Patrick, for that interview. Star Clippers has a really great special going on right now if you're interested in doing one of the tall ships around the world. Right now, everyone can enjoy a 10% discount off of their cruise. And if you're new to Star Clippers, you'll get an additional 5% off. So that's a total discount if you're new to Star Clippers of 15%, or if you sailed on Star Clipper, you'll get 10% off. Star Clippers sells various destinations around the world. They sail in the Caribbean, Central America, Eastern and Western Mediterranean, and then some specialty cruises through the Panama Canal, different ocean voyages. One of the most unique experiences you can have in cruising. Well, that'll do it for this week's show of Inside Travel Talk podcast and radio show. Tune in next week and we'll get you some more travel deals and travel information.
That's it. That's the end of the show. You've been listening to the Inside Travel Talk podcast and radio show with Patrick Wiscombe and Mark Faldmo, presented by BluePlanetVacations.com. Book your adventure right now. Call 888-718-7717. That's 888-718-7717. Thanks for listening. Have a great week.
Inside Travel Talk is brought to you by AMA Waterways. From castles and capitals to vistas and villages, visit some of Europe's most remarkable sites and cities. The award-winning and family-owned river cruise line, AMA Waterways, offers a wide variety of unforgettable itineraries along Europe's iconic rivers, perfectly suited to every traveler's interests. Whether you are passionate about music, history, architecture, or enjoy the finer things in a Europe river cruise on AMA Waterways is the gift that keeps on giving. To set out on your own river cruise journey, contact Blue Planet Vacations at 888-718-7717 or blueplanetvacations.com.